Without further ado, I give you Soraya Deen.
Thank you, Erica, my sister. I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. Just feeling so wonderful to be here, but where do I begin? It was September 11th, 2007. I had just driven my car to pick my 7-year-old son from school. And that afternoon, as I parked my car and stepped onto the sidewalk, I heard the school bell ring. And as I walked towards the main gate, I could see the children walking towards the gate. And I stood on my toes because I wanted to get a glimpse of my 7-year-old son. And unlike other days, that afternoon, as my son approached me, he was looking down as if he had lost something. So I waded my way through the crowd and I walked to the main gate and I put my hand out and grasped his and pulled him towards me. And in a joking way, I said to him, "Hey, buddy, is everything all right?" My 7-year-old son, he then looked up at me. His eyes welled in tears and his face full of fear. And he whispered to me, "Mommy," he said, "Mommy, are we terrorists?" And that afternoon, as I heard those words come out of my mouth, the mouth of my son, I froze. I looked around. Everything seemed familiar. The noises, the voices, the place, everything seemed familiar. But inside me, I was afraid. And from the corner of my eyes, I caught my son looking up at me. And at that moment, I realized that my words could liberate him or enslave him. That my words could give him hope or despair. And I realized that my words could give him joy. And as I pulled his hand and we walked a few steps away from the main gate, I kneeled next to him and I said to him, "Baby, you are not a terrorist. Mommy is not a terrorist. Daddy and your baby sister, we are not terrorists. And it is true," I said to him, "people are saying bad things about us. We don't hear anything nice in the press, in the media, in the newspapers. But that can't define us." And I looked at my son as my father looked at me, and I realized that day, though that day just sprang on me, that moment did not. For a lifetime I had prepared for that moment. And I knew that day I had to give a baton, a message, a purpose to my son. And that was that he had to know that no matter what people say about us, we have the capacity to love those people, especially those people who don't know us. I was born in Sri Lanka. My father had a phenomenal influence in my life. He was 6'3", handsome, real good-looking guy. But his real beauty was not in his frame, it was in his heart. Now, he was the kind of person who would wake up every morning, and the first question he asks is, "What can I do today to help someone?" And I grew up in a household with 15 cousins living in the same house at any given time. And I would say my childhood was a very joyous one. It was like the United Nations, I say. We learned to play together, we learned to talk together, and really, we didn't fight. And I believe that my childhood provided me a very strong foundation to be where I am today, to do the work that I'm called to do today. Because of my father, because of the lessons he taught me, and because today I myself am a certified nonviolent parent educator, I reach out to parents all over and I tell them, I remind them, our children are precious. We are sculptors of their brains. And they are watching us. Don't be upset that they are not listening, I say. I say be upset that they are watching. So the lessons I learned from my father, I gave to my son that day. And today, 10 years later, I stand at a serious crossroad. A challenging one, a scary one, but yet I think a sacred one. I stand at a crossroad with 3 paths leading in 3 directions. One path leads me to my religion and my community. Another path takes to spirituality. And the third path takes me to be who I am today, a feminist. Napoleon once said, religion is a powerful tool. It can keep people squabbling, and it is also a very useful tool to the people who rule us. And today I see in my country, as an American who is Muslim, there's a lot of fear about Muslims. When there is something that happens everywhere, we are told to take responsibility. And that is a very challenging place to be. And then I also realize that everything we do cannot be defined by religion. And I call on my community to deconstruct some of the received theology that we have. And that's a very challenging place to be. Because religion and politics are highly contentious topics. And traveling those 3 paths, it is my intention that these 3 paths turn to one another, not turn against each other. And therefore, I live in a very, very challenging situation. My path to spirituality is simple. And I feel that I don't need to have a God outside of me to guide me in that path. Because I feel God is residing within me. And my ability, the work I do on a daily basis, to show up with loving kindness. Now, Buddha said, loving kindness is the love a mother has for a child. And his vision was that we should all love each other that deep. The spirituality that I embrace is one of compassion, where I strive hard not to let anything I say or do hurt someone. And then the spirituality I embrace also reminds me that we need to embrace an altruistic joy. That is our ability to be joyful at somebody's success. Maybe he got the job and I didn't, but that's okay. I'm joyful no matter. And in the turbulent world we live in, our ability to embrace equanimity, not to be ruffled, is a spiritual path I embrace and I walk on a daily basis. The third path I take, which is the most challenging, is that of being a feminist. Being a feminist in patriarchal cultures, in patriarchal religions, is a very big challenge. Because religion, all the time, has never been kind to feminism. And I remember, it was 15th of April, a woman named Rabia Kibble, she called me from Berkeley and she said, I am opening the first mixed gender mosque, and I would like for you to come and lead the sermon and to lead the prayer. This is not heard of in my community. And I said, yes. And as I said yes, I realized I was the least qualified, but I was the most prepared. I did not cover my hair, I did not speak Arabic, nor was I from the Middle East. And that is the message I take to the girls today, particularly Muslim girls. Not maybe here, but a girl growing up in Afghanistan, in Africa, in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia. I think they need to hear this message, that they have an agency to interpret their faith, that men in beards don't necessarily have to tell us what to do and what to think. And I'm sure you have heard of Malala. Her whole path is to educate the girls. And I feel, and I applaud her for that. We need the education, but we also need to give the tools to young girls to deconstruct received theology and to challenge patriarchy. Because one without the other is not sustainable. And my work today is to speak to those girls all over the world, that they are masterpieces of the Master, and that it is not okay that some people have the opportunity to have their voices expressed while some others have their voices suppressed. Because we are all created with this inalienable right, I know, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as I continue with that journey of bringing people together and empowering young girls, I see a great flaw that happened in our country. Our motto, of E pluribus unum, a wise man said, we rushed to the unum and we forgot the pluribus. And today we all need to go back to that pluribus and work on it. And my life, I have 2 kids, it's all about looking at the world not as it is, because it will become what it is. We need today to look at the world as it could be, so that we will all do what we need to make it as it should be. Thank you.